In this video, I'm going to show you how to take care of your natural wood knife handles as well as cutting boards and butcher block tops. There's two ways you can watch this video. The first, hang out for a minute or two because I'm just going to give you the info. And if you're busy, you need to move along, awesome, do your thing. For everyone else who wants to hang out throughout the video as I'm treating these knives and everything else in front of me here, I'm gonna have a big old geek out sesh just talking about the various knives from the Miyabi. I've got a Wusthof Takayuki, a couple Moritaka, and some Yoshikane, and a Wusthof Classic, which isn't made of wood. So why is that here? Well, for those who hang out with me, you're gonna learn. For everyone else, just skip ahead of the video, you'll find it. Okay, if you're busy, let's get right to it. I have natural wood handles that are not lacquered. If they're lacquered, they're not gonna absorb the oil. Sometimes you get a handle that was lacquered but has worn down over time, and you'll see that parts of it will absorb, some won't. You can't hurt to give it a go. Generally, you can see the sheen of a lacquer or you can feel the difference. There's something about a natural wood handle, there's a warmth to it that you can immediately feel the difference when you pick one up that is lacquered. So all you're gonna do is take some food grade mineral oil. You can get it on Amazon, you can get it in most grocery stores, home improvement stores, and you're just gonna rub it on your knife, let it sit overnight, and you're good to go. That's it. If it doesn't absorb, well, there's some lacquer on there. Just wipe it off with a paper towel. No harm, no foul, you gave it a go. For my cutting boards, I'm going to use the same mineral oil. And then for the butcher block top here that I put together for my studio, I use a mineral oil natural wax hybrid. Now, we have no affiliation with any of these companies. These are just things that I got online. You could as well. I'll be honest with you, if we end up selling one of these things someday, they're probably gonna be more expensive through us. So you know what to do. You don't need anything fancy for this. That's the point. So if you're busy, there's the nuts and bolts. Mineral oil on the handles and your cutting board, mineral oil wax combo for the tops. Now you can use this for your cutting boards as well. I just haven't. I've been using the mineral oil and it works. So for everyone else who wants to hang out with me and geek out over these knives, let's dive in. Hey, it's me from 24 Hours in the Future. 3 very quick things. First, at the end of the video, I'm gonna show you what 24 hours of soaking with mineral oil does to all of these handles, before and after giving them a quick little wipe down with a rag. Second thing, this video took a little bit longer than I anticipated, so I put timestamps into descriptions, which may show up as little chapters somewhere along here, so you can bounce around if needed. And the third and final thing is the first 3 Yoshikane knives that I talk about, I said that they were actually all 4, SKD series, but the first 3 being the ones with the handles attached, not the last one you'll see, are the Shirogami white carbon steel blades, not the SKD. I had a little bit of a brain fart. So there you go. Back to previous me. A few things that I would recommend getting. Gloves. You don't have to have them, but it's definitely gonna make it easier. And if you need a hand, you need to get super clean fast and you don't wanna have to worry about putting a new glove on your sweaty hand, it's a pain in the butt, throw on 2 layers and you'll be good to go. I have some paper towels as well as a regular towel that I don't mind getting oily and staining it. I have these little paint cloths for the butcher block top to apply. And then I have some sheet trays, which I'm just going to prop the knives up like so and alternate them and let them sit overnight. And then I have some baking racks, which I will lay out to put the cutting board on once I'm done, because I'm gonna do all sides. And that's all you need. Let's dive in. The first knife that I'm going to be treating today would be the Miyabi Birchwood. So this has a natural birchwood handle. I think this is one of the prettiest handles that there are, definitely the prettiest in the Miyabi lineup. The birchwood here is made of SG2 powdered steel with Damascus cladding. This has a very minimalistic bolster and stainless steel end cap that has the kanji there. Nice little mosaic, red inlays. This is a beautiful knife. The geometry of Miyabi from starting at the spine is so thin. These knives just glide, especially if you get one that has a fully polished blade. So I'm working over top of this cutting board because I'm going to end up using the same oil to treat the board. And this is really all I'm going to do. This is going to kind of seem a little bit messy, but whatever. I'm going to put a little bit of oil in my hand. I'm going to take the blade, and all I'm going to do, you can immediately see the color change. You don't need to worry about getting oil on the metal. It's not going to hurt it at all. It's not water. So for some of these higher carbon blades that could end up rusting, oil is not going to rust. And look at that finish already. Now tomorrow, this is not going to look as shiny, and it's going to dull down a little bit in the sense of the color, but just that quickly, you can see how much that came to life. And I'm going to put that right there like so, push this up so I don't stab myself. I've got plenty of oil on my hand, so I may not need it for the next knife, which is the Miyabi Black. Now the Miyabi Black has the hardest Rockwell coming in at a 66, whereas the Birchwood here is at a 63 with the SG2 powdered metallurgy stainless steel. MC66 is what they call this. Very, very hard. This is the knife that everyone wants, but not everyone should get because this has to be used very precisely so you don't end up chipping or fracturing or cracking the blade. Same length as the other one, which is at 8 inches, same bolster. And then this has a big leaf maple burl handle that has this ash type of dye to its stain. And just a little bit of oil that I have on my hand. You can see, look at that pop. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, it looks like granite or marble countertop. Absolutely beautiful. And then for this one, I'm just going to alternate like so. Next up is what I believe to be today the only Wusthof with natural wood that is not lacquered. It says in the description that it is a natural finish and it is naturally water repellent and antibacterial, and that is the Calabrian olive wood. Absolutely stunning handle. This is a unique knife as well. And look, just with a little bit of oil I've got in my hand there, watch this come to life. Look at that. Doesn't that look stunning? I love natural wood. I mean, you can see around me, I've got a lot of different types of wood. I love it. It's great. Okay, so what's interesting about the Amici is, again, natural wood handle that is unfinished. You can tell already. This has a double rivet instead of a triple. But if you look at the tip of the blade here, this is very, very different from the traditional Wusthof Classic. You can see that the Wusthof Classic right here, this is a 10-inch, has a more centered point. And centered, I mean by, if you look at the spine, the heel, and the tip, it makes kind of a perfect triangle. And this is centered to the blade itself. Whereas the Amici, this has a really big curve at the tip that is reminiscent of the Zwilling Pro, and the tip of the knife is at the spine instead of centered, or like a Gyuto here where they are at closer to the edge side. This is just a stellar knife for the rock chop if that's your thing. This is a full bolster, German construction, coming in that 56 to 58 Rockwell. If you like a full bolster, you will love this knife, especially if you like the rock chop. And look at that just stunning handle. So we will alternate this. I'm going to get a little bit of a paper towel on my right hand so I don't muck up too much of the blades because they will not look as good on camera. Okay, next up is the Takayuki 9.4-inch Gyuto. This is Aogami number 2 blue carbon steel. And I am 90% sure this does not have a lacquer. It's hard to tell. There's a little bit of a sheen in certain angles, but if you look at the butt of the knife here, feeling this, it is much drier. So I'm not 100% sure. But again, if it doesn't absorb, it doesn't absorb, no big deal. A little bit right in my hand. I mean, I probably put 1/4 teaspoon there. You don't need much at all. So let's see what this looks like. Definitely pop the color. And the way this just absorbed on the bottom there, I'm gonna say, yeah, I'm gonna say that this is not lacquered, or it's just kind of worn off. This is a beautiful knife. This is a longer Gyuto because it's coming in at that 9.4-ish inch mark. Awesome shape to this because of the way the tip comes down to the edge side. This type of knife is intended for push and tap chopping, not so much rock chopping. However, because this is a longer blade, you can get a rock chop, but if you have a high ingredient and you're coming down like this, that's where you're gonna find that the tip of the knife will end up digging into the cutting board. So if you're doing like a chiffonade for some basil, or you're getting a really fine cut on some green onion, or even a carrot that's yay high, you should be okay. So just keep that in mind. If you are a fan of the rock chop and you find a knife where the tip is coming on the edge side of the knife instead of centered or at the spine side, it may not be the best knife for you. This knife, I believe we have in stock. Everything here is definitely in stock. The next couple are hit or miss because when we get our inventory, we get what we get, and that's that. I don't understand all of the ins and outs of the distribution side of these knives and how the contracts work. From what I understand, it can vary. Sometimes you pay for a full month of production and whatever they make is what you get. Sometimes you can put specific orders in. Sometimes it's just, you say I want as much as you can send me and they send it to you and you get a bill. So that's why some of these smaller batch Japanese knives are hit or miss in the sense of their inventory. Moritaka, we get them once a year and they sell out very quickly. I'm very happy to have 2 of them. And then the Yoshikane, we generally have some in stock, but it's just going to vary. One of the ones, which are the ones that I have here, that we usually have in stock would be the SKD series. And then their Shirogami, we have a couple. When we get into some of the burl handles like this, they go quickly, and I will save that for the end as well. Okay, next up, this is the Moritaka Gyuto. This is 8 1/4 inch. Again, very similar to the Takayuki here. I am 90+% sure that this is not lacquered. What's interesting is this is an Aogami Super Blue, which is of the Shirogami to Aogami steels. This is the hardest, but at times can also be one of the most challenging knives to sharpen and to maintain. So this is coming in, originally it's much higher and then the tempering brings it back down. I think it's a 64 Rockwell. Just an awesome blade. I really enjoy this. This came to me as a return. Someone actually broke the tip off. This was missing a good, probably 1/16 of an inch of the tip. And then I sent this out to have it professionally sharpened and they brought this back to life, which was awesome. Okay, so I've got, I think, plenty of oil on my hand. You can see you don't need a lot here, and look at that already. What a quick transformation. Beautiful. Look at the butt. I can see how is that absorbing. Yeah, it's already sinking in, so I would say that this is definitely a natural finish. I believe this is walnut as the handle. Actually, if you look at the handle of the Takayuki, it's the same one. So a lot of the knives from Japanese bladesmith come as this to a distributor, or sometimes even the retailer, and then the retailer or the distributor will select the handle. And when I get to this, I'm going to save it for the end to explain why. You'll see why it's taken apart. Next up is the Moritaka Honesuki, which looks like Honesuki. I don't care how you pronounce it. This is a traditional Japanese boning knife. You can see it's got quite the spine on it. I'm not sure if you got the right light there. Let's move it up. There you go. Pretty thick spine for such a short knife. And with the oil I've got in my hand here is already enough to do the trick. Beautifully absorbed with the butt there. And this is the, oh yeah, that's definitely thirsty. I'm gonna get a little bit more on there. I don't know if you can see how quickly that's getting absorbed into that. So this knife style, the Honesuki, is now marketed as a prep knife or a utility knife. For example, the Shun, actually I got a little oil on here. This is Pakkawood, and it definitely already changed this. I've had this for a long time. The knives by Shun right now are made, as in the Shun Classic, are made with Pakkawood. This has a pretty good dent in it in the handle from just abuse over the last 10 years. You can see it right there. And there's not a change in the color, so that's why I know that this is not real wood, but it just came to life a little bit right there anyway. So that style, this Honesuki style, has been around for a very long time, but the name itself, a lot of people don't really understand. For years, I called it a Honesuki until I was corrected that it's a Honesuki. Whatever. Just know how to use the knife. That's it. That's all I really care about. I'm from New Jersey. I mispronounce a lot of these names all the time. It is what it is. The thing that's awesome about this knife is for a prep or utility knife, you get knuckle clearance. So you can get a nice tap or a push chop without your knuckles banging into the cutting board, kind of like they would with this Yoshikane petty, although that is still one of my favorites, and you do get a decent amount of knuckle clearance there, but nowhere near as much as this. So if you want a prep knife that you can basically do almost everything you can with a normal santoku, geekery, chef's knife, Gyuto, Bunka, then I would definitely recommend getting, that's cool, the blade looks really good too with a little bit of oil. Anyway, I would recommend getting one of these. Now this is Aogami number 2 blue versus the super blue of the Gyuto. All right. Next up will be the Yoshikane SKD series. All of these have they call it an SKD 12 core, which is a semi-stainless core, and then they have stainless steel cladding. When I was talking with Michael, the owner of Cutlery More, we went back and forth about these handles, and I told him, I was like, dude, these things absorb oil like crazy. He's like, they're lacquered. And I said, well, maybe they used to be. Like this Yoshikane back here is definitely lacquered, but the ebony handles, I believe is what these are, they absorb oil. At least the petty does. I haven't done these two yet, but we're going for it. This is the Yoshikane Bunka. The Bunka is known for its 6 to 7 inch length with the K-tip, Kuritsuke style tip. There's kind of a debate on what makes this a Bunka versus just a shorter Kuritsuke. And some would say that at the tip here, there's more of a curvature for a Bunka, but you will see plenty of Bunka knives that have that very straight, same width all the way to the edge there, like a Kuritsuke, and they market it as a Bunka. Whether it's a Gyuto, a Kuritsuke, a K-tip Gyuto, a Bunka, we go by what the manufacturers label their knives as. So let's see how quickly this comes to life. Beautiful. Darkens the finish immediately. Get the butt. Yeah, this is definitely, so you can see, or at least I can see, I don't know if I can get the right angle. Okay, maybe right there, where the wood absorbs, and you'll see where certain areas like here, it's kind of pulled up a little bit, and then other areas down here, it just gets absorbed in. So if you're curious about whether your handle has a lacquer or not, that's just a quick and easy way to tell. You can oil your blades too. I don't know much about that, to be honest with you, but the oil on the blade is not going to hurt anything. In fact, some knives, when you receive them, will have a little bit of oil on them, especially if they're carbon steel, and it's basically to prevent any type of moisture from staining the knife in transportation. So I guess I know a little bit about it, but not a ton. Yeah, I'm still curious. Now that I'm looking at this more, yeah, it's getting pulled in different spots. Maybe just because I've used these a lot of the knives that I've received from Cutlery more since I started doing work with them. I've probably used these Yoshikane more than anything, especially this petty. There's just, I mean, I've got a lot of knives that they've sent me and in my personal collection. I love every single one of them. Okay, that's a lie. I don't love every single one of them. I like them all, but I love some more than others. I can see this already absorbing in, like this Birchwood is, and same thing with the black. Yeah, you don't see that oil buildup on them whatsoever. And I'm even seeing the absorption in the Amici here. This one looks like it's, well, I just did that one. All right, let's move on. These are all the same handles, and I've done this petty multiple times, and it needed it. Okay, so I've got plenty of oil here. This is the Yoshikane SKD Gyuto, 8-inch, 8¼ inches, stainless steel cladding. So you can see the edge here will definitely develop a patina, and we'll just get like little marks on it here and there, depending on how quickly you clean it after using things like lemons or onion or various other ingredients. Looking good. Let's turn this, there we go. Get it this way. Now, the petty. This is the knife I use more than anything right now, and I have been for months. I love utility blades. I love petty Honesuki style. This one, I don't know what it is, but if we have them in stock and you get your hands on one, cherish it. I love the blade. The size, the shape. I'm making food real quick. I don't need to do a ton of prep. This is what I grab. Otherwise, I'll grab one of the various chef's knives or Gyutos that I have, or I've been using a Bunka a lot lately. The Matsubara, as well as the Enzo hand forge. And the reason that I know that these are not lacquered, or at least it's worn off, is because tomorrow, after I'm done with these, they will all be totally flat. They'll be darker and richer, but you will not see any oil bubbled up on at least this one. I know this one, this one, this one. Pretty sure all the other ones, aside from that Shun that I did, do not have any type of lacquer. When we write a description on the small batch knives, it's basically just specs. So whatever they send us, it's the length, the blade height, the handle type, generally the wood. It's not going to say anything hyper specific. So that's why some of these are hard for me to tell if they did receive a lacquer, whereas other ones, I can definitely feel it immediately. Okay, next up is actually, yeah, we'll just continue with this. This is the extra tall Yoshikane SKD. It even has the SKD stamp right here. You might be able to see it right there on the handle. So this was sent to me out of inventory because it did not pass our internal quality assurance check for small batch knives that come into receiving. All of the small batch knives are inspected because things happen. And this was made by Yoshikane. The handle, this was put on afterwards by either our, most likely it would have been the distributor. So this is I believe this is the same maple burl, or stabilized birch rather. And I'm not sure if you're going to be able to tell, but where the tang went down to about there, the handle, yes, I think you can see, started warping and has this curve to it going that way. And the reason why is because when it came to us and it did not pass inspection, there was a little tiny gap right there at the handle into the ring. I can even feel it. And that's not good enough for a $500 some or $600 knife. We're just not going to put that in our shop, which is a good thing. And if you ever do get a knife and it's delivered and you notice a significant defect because for whatever reason it got by someone's eye, take a photo of it, send it to us. Believe me, we're going to take care of you. We want you to be happy with your investment, whether it's a $100 knife or it's a $600 knife plus. So this handle, I tried treating a few times thinking maybe it would kind of bring its shape back, and it didn't. And then I found out that as soon as I put this in a pot of boiling water, I saw air bubbles coming out of the top right here. So there's an opening in there somewhere. And that's all I did to remove the handle. Boiling water, I don't know, I let it sit in there once it was boiled for like 5 minutes. It was enough to melt the super glue. You can see sticking out the top there, it dried, and this just slid right off. I have a new handle on its way. I don't know which was sent to me, but I'm excited to bring this back to life because this is one of my favorite Yoshikane because of the extra tall height. The blade, you can see the difference compared to, yeah, so you've got roughly a 1/4 inch higher, and it does make a bit of a difference. Also, because of that extra height there, this is pretty decent at the rock chop if you're doing very small, same thing as the other ones I said, just a real small one. You don't want to be pivoting down your cutting board with these knives or mincing like this on a pivot, because that's where you will end up fracturing the blade. Now, this handle, just with the little bit of oil I've got left here, is quite stunning. If you do find a knife with this handle, get it. It's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. It's just this one had a little bit of a defect. It is what it is, things happen, but I wanna just please understand that the handle defect is no representation of this beautiful blade by Yoshikane. Okay, the last knife I have here is my Wusthof Classic from 11, 12-ish years ago. This is made of POM, which is polyethyl methylene. Yeah, this is the old school. They had this sticker on here, so the logo wore off. The new ones have the logo that is in the handle that I think is the same POM material. Now, this has this like faded look to it. And if you have a Wusthof or a Zwilling or some of the other handles that are made of this material, and you just want to kind of bring it to life a little bit, just put a little bit of oil on there. It's not going to absorb, but what's interesting is with the POM, P-O-M material, it gets this like cloudiness to it that little tiny bit right there will hopefully minimize. It just has to do with an old type of handle like that. Since this isn't going to absorb, I would not recommend picking this up the next day and going to town. You're going to want to give this a little bit of a wash or a rinse, or at least wipe it off with a paper towel. And there you have it. There are all of the knives, nice and lathered up. And looking at these, yes, so I would say that all the knives that I've treated have a natural wood finish. And I can tell just based off of the way the oil, it's not bubbling up in some areas, it's being absorbed, and then others just have not absorbed yet. And I would say, gosh, look at this handle. Is that not beautiful or what? I think these lighter toned woods with a little bit of oil in there, they just pop. Even more so than like the, well, I guess that looks really good in that light, but laying down here at that angle, it just, not that it doesn't look good, it just, you can't see all the graining pop as much as the others. So excellent. I'm gonna take this and put it, where am I gonna put this? I'm just gonna put it all the way in the corner here for now. Scooch you over. I feel good about that. Maybe back up a little so I don't stab myself. Okay, get rid of you. And let's get rid of you. I don't need this. Now it's time to lather up the cutting board. You can see right here is where I use this board, and I specifically use it on this side for a couple of reasons. And I'm just gonna give you a little behind the scenes here. This was damaged in shipping. I don't know if you can see right here, there's a little bit of a crack. Anyway, there's a little bit of a crack in there. So I got it, which is great because it's still a good board. We're just not gonna sell a $400 board to someone with any bit of damage. So I get the damaged stuff. A lot of times. I get a lot of new stuff, but I get damaged stuff, which is totally fine. I'm not complaining. I love it. This is a walnut board. I'm going to put the brand name, I think I do it on my right side, right here, because I don't remember. I know this is US made and it's walnut. I've treated this many times. It's an awesome board. This is a harder wood. So I have noticed that compared to using the Shun cutting board here, which is a very, very soft wood. Hinoki. Hold on. See, I knew I was going to need this. Where's my phone? There's a lot to remember, and I don't always remember. Hinoki. Got it. I was right. I was almost right. So Hinoki, one, smells absolutely phenomenal when you open it. I don't think I've ever smelled wood that was that good. Maybe cedar would be right next to it. But this board has been used and abused, and I have yet to give it any type of love. There's little divots in here. It's a much, much softer wood. This is awesome for Japanese knives because, especially those with a much higher Rockwell, like everyone that I just showed you there, because it doesn't get caught into the graining of the wood when you are doing like any bit of a pivot. I have been using the Matsubara Bunka as well as the Yoshikane Gyuto a lot downstairs in my kitchen lately. And I recently did a knife video on the Matsubara Bunka on this board. And at one point, I believe it's 4 minutes and 40 seconds, I was using it the same way I would on this. And I did a little tiny and you could hear the metal fracture. It was pretty bizarre. I since sharpened it out, it's good to go. But keep that in mind. The harder the wood, especially like the teak and bamboo, they are terrible to use for high Rockwell knives. And if you are getting into Japanese knives, or you already are, a board like this is fine, but a softer board is even better. I haven't gotten my hands on one of those rubber boards yet, but I'm excited to. Okay, let's get into this. Where are my baking racks? Because we're gonna do this one first, and I have a feeling it's really gonna soak up. Now I've got these little rags here that I use for the wax, and you know, I'm just gonna use the paper towel, that's fine. So this I'm really gonna lather up. It's better actually to not use an absorbing paper towel for this, but it's what I got. Never mind. I don't want to stain this. Yeah, we're just gonna use this. So I'm just gonna push this around lightly. You see that change in color immediately. This was very thirsty. I've been using this, I want to say, since June, and I have not treated it yet, which is shame on me, to be totally honest with you. Look at that. Now we're gonna get the sides. Oh yeah, that is absorbing real fast. I might even have to do another coat on this, to be honest with you, this week. I mean, this absorbed very quickly. Definitely a thirsty board. Bad me. A little bit more here. You can see this was brand new. I've probably used, I don't know, 2 ounces. So I think that costs $10 or $12. That's going to last multiple treatments between the boards and the knives. And that's it. And then I put this on one of these racks and let it absorb in. Next day, you don't even have to rinse it. You can if you want to, but you're good to go to just start prepping on. Need to make sure that my SD cards here are doing good on time. Doing good over here. I think this one might be a little, 30 minutes left. It shouldn't take me that long to do this board in the block. Okay, same thing. I'm actually going to use my hand on this one to spread this out so it's not getting absorbed into the paper towel, which is usually how I just remember that I do this. This looks stunning when this soaks in a little bit. You just see all the graining, the angle that you're at right now. Here, let's give you a little bit. Look at that, rich. Oh, my focus is having a hard time. Look at that focus breathing. Come on, Sony. It's because it's reflecting. Okay. Looking good. I'm just going to give this a little bit of pressure with this now. Get into those finer little divots. Up on the side. Be very careful with these big boards. Big boards, you don't want to drop these on anything, including your feet. I had this board in my old studio. If you go back, I don't know if you much want to call it a studio. It was a bedroom, a second master bedroom in our family cabin that I turned into a studio early on. Anyway, I had it leaned up against my table at the time, and I was barefoot, and it was dark, and I didn't see it, and I jammed my right middle toe up against this, and pretty sure I broke it. Not the board, my toe. That was not fun. Okay, looking good. Now let's see here. So you can get and see the difference in the graining just by doing that. Let's see if I can get. Yeah, my camera is not liking the oil. Make sure you're also wearing clothes you don't mind getting oil on, or a leather apron like this that you can just wipe right off. You don't want to ruin your nice clothes. Now, I put a pretty thick layer on this, and I'm good with that because it needs it. And we're going to get this right here. I just realized I could probably do those two handles, but let's move on. Perfect. And now, all we have left, well, why am I wiping off? Just do this, is this butcher block top, which I like to use the mineral oil wax hybrid. And I have these painter's rags, and I just reuse them because why not? There's wax and stuff left in there, and I will fold it up like so and get a really good amount. This definitely needs a lot because it's winter, the heat has been on, and I know that this is thirsty. I love how quickly that graining pops. It's beautiful. Now, tomorrow, when I come in here in the morning, this will feel almost the same as it does, but it'll be treated. And this little bit here is just saving this from drying out, cracking. The reason I did not finish this is, as in put any type of poly. Actually, that's a lie. I tried to. I put 2 different types of finishing. I used tung oil for one attempt and then another type of poly, and it just felt and looked bad. There was a weird sheen, even though I got one that was supposed to be flat. Didn't care for it. So sanded it all off, got this, and it's really easy. And at some point, I may seal it completely, but I just like this real natural look to it. Now, this has got quite a bit, and I can see I've got plenty down here. The other thing I noticed, there's a couple times where on here, like right here, there's a little bit of black from my tripod stands for different things that I do, and it'll leave a mark. So when I'm doing it, this comes right off. There was a little blemish. It just pulls it out and cleans it up. And that's pretty much it, folks. You got to take care of natural wood. So whether it be the handles of your knives or your cutting boards or your little studio Lowe's butcher block center island build. Get the sides here. This isn't even attached, and I did that so it's easy to move, and I can get the sides here without getting stuff all over the place. And if you're curious, the base here are 2 different bottom kitchen cabinet pieces that I attach together. And then I just let this kind of float around, and it's heavy enough that if I bump it, it's not going to go flying off. And then I just measure each side to center it between, moving it around. So this looks pretty good. Well, there you have it. Thanks so much for hanging out and watching how to take care of your wooden knife handles, your cutting boards, your butcher block, geeking out over knives. I would say if you go to cutlerymore.com and you type in Moritaka or Yoshikane into the search, you can enter your email to be notified when certain knives come back in stock. I will say this though, just because you don't get an email notification doesn't mean that we didn't get other knives of those brand in stock. So if you are looking for a specific Moritaka or Yoshikane or an Igara, some of the other, we don't get a ton of specific knives of the same thing of inventory. So just keep an eye out on the site, and I promise that at some point, if you're fast enough, well, I guess I can't promise, hopefully you'll be able to get your hands on one of these beautiful Japanese small batch knives. I tell you, it's a completely different experience when you have one of these knives in your hand. I'm so grateful to have some of the knives that I do, because it just makes prepping I look forward to it. Let's just say that. Not that I didn't before as a chef, and even using some of my old beater knives. Like, I mean, I've got a Mercer down there that's 40 or 50 bucks that I use for a very long time. I enjoyed prepping with that, but gosh, when you get some of these knives and you understand the work that goes into it and just how precise they are, the geometry, the feel. And one thing that I will say, and I'll wrap up with this, if there's one thing that I can say that I learned since I started using some of these finer crafted Japanese knives, is that you don't need to use a lot of force. You can just delicately hold the knife enough to stabilize it, but you should be able to just let the knife go. You don't have to squeeze or push down really hard. You can just let the knife do its thing. And that has been transformative in how I prep and how I perceive prepping, if that makes sense. That's that. I'm Chef Brandon with Cutlery More. Thanks so much for tuning in. Join me next time for whatever video we do next, and that's that. Take care. Here we are, back to the future 24 hours later. To those of you who watched the whole video, high five, fist bump, whatever. For everyone else who skipped ahead, it's cool. I'll allow it. Let's dive right in. I'm going to show you the knives in order of how I gave them all the oil treatment so you can see how they look before and after wiping them down. Here we go. The first is going to be the Miyabi Birchwood. Compared to yesterday before the oil treatment, the handle is definitely popping a lot more, especially the darker graining in the wood. Now let's give this a little wipe down. What I would recommend doing is before you start using these so you don't get oil on your hand, because you will, which could affect your grip. You don't want to be doing that with any of these sharp knives, is just give these a real quick once over with a little bit of soap, dry them, and it's going to be totally ready to rock. And that little bit of polish didn't really affect the way this looks with this handle, but it definitely affected the grip. In fact, just wiping like that, you could probably be good to go, but once you get pinched up on the blade, that's where things might get a little bit slippery. So there is the Miyabi Birchwood. Next up is the Miyabi Black. This big leaf maple ash stained handle definitely pops with the brighter elements to it. Overall, the handle itself is just darker, and that's completely expected considering it got an oil treatment. Let's see if wiping this down does anything. No, I would say this looks just about the same, but definitely a lot darker and richer than yesterday. Next up, we have the Wusthof Amici. I would say of all the handles, this transformed the most in the sense of the richness of the graining and the overall color, even more so than the Birchwood. Let's give this a quick wipe down. Not much of a difference, but this still looks really good. Now, the reason I'm doing before and after wiping them down is because I want you to be able to see how much the oil did or did not absorb. For these first three, it definitely absorbed very well. Next up is the Takayuki 9.4-inch Gyuto. The walnut part of the handle definitely absorbed the buffalo horn ferrule. Interestingly enough, feels like it also absorbed some of the oil, which I did not think would happen. I mean, you can definitely feel a big difference. This feels almost like plastic, so to speak, compared to the natural wood. Now let's give this a wipe down. It is not plastic, but it just has that smoother type of consistency to it, which I didn't mention yesterday. This looks very similar after wiping it down, but I would say that the walnut handle itself looks a little bit flatter. So this definitely absorbed some oil, but there was a little bit lingering on the exterior. The Moritaka, Gyuto, and the Honesuki are all the same as the one I just showed you. So I'm just gonna give these a little wipe down and we're gonna move on to the next knife, which is going to be the Shun Honesuki. This is made of Paka wood, not real wood. So we're gonna see if this looks much different after I wipe it down. Very shiny. It feels oily. So let's wipe it down. Yeah, I can feel that the oil on this is just resting on top. It may have helped polish it up a little bit, but I imagine that after I hit this with some soap, see, you can see the graining of this, even though it's fake graining. You can see more of it since I wiped it down. And it still feels a little bit greasy compared to the other ones after I wiped them down. So I would say that maybe if you start to get that off-looking color similar to the Wusthof here, this you can see immediately is just shiny. The oil is all on top. This did not do much at all, so we'll wipe this down. And hopefully this just helped pop the color a little bit. The thing is with this in the Paka wood, by the time you wash it a few times, especially with like Dawn dish soap, which is what I use because it's a great degreaser, you're probably not gonna, yeah, that's real slippery. It's definitely made a difference after wiping it down, but this is very slippery even after doing it. So after you wash this, I don't know if it's gonna be much of a difference, but people have said that they like to oil them and it will bring that cloudiness out of it. So we'll see how it looks after I wash it. Okay, we have the last three, which would be the Yoshikane. Again, these are the Shirogami white carbon steel blades, not the SKD, which is what I thought they all were. The blades look near identical. Again, I just had a little bit of a brain fart. Okay, let's get started with the Bunka. This absorbed very well. The handle looks great. It got a couple shades darker with the treatment. Let's give it a little wipe down here. I think that these handles originally had some type of wax on them. It's just my guess, but they definitely absorbed the oil nicely. It doesn't look too much different as you can see, so this definitely absorbed it. I think there was a wax on these originally, and probably most of the ones that aren't treated had some type of oil or wax on them when they were manufactured, or at least when the handles were put on. But with some dish soap and as much as I use these, they wore off. This is definitely grippier, and I could tell that they definitely absorbed some oil. This is the Gyuto. I'll do it before. Looks the same. Yeah. Actually, this one was very thirsty. Without even wiping this down, the grip is more so than the Bunka. Something I did notice with the Petty, because I have treated this probably, this is the 5th time that I put oil in this handle. You may not be able to tell, but it seems like this one did not absorb as much oil as the others. I can see it and I can feel it in the handle, and it's most likely just because of the fact that this has already been treated a few times, whereas those other two, who knows when they were made. They came to me, I want to say last June, May or June, and I have not treated them yet. Yeah, I can feel with this one that it's telling me I've got enough oil for a while. I'm good to go. So I will leave this one be for, well, until I feel that the handle needs it. I basically just did it because I use this so often, and I really don't know how often you're gonna have to oil your handles. It's really gonna be up to your individual environment, the type of soap that you're using when you clean these, how often you use them. Do you live in a real humid place with the AC on all the time, a humid place without the AC? Are you in the desert? All those things are going to matter. Now, I want to show you real quick the SKD handle of the Yoshikane versus the ebony. As you can see here, the SKD on top, there is definitely a lacquer. You can see that sheen, and the feel of this, it's all about the grip. Like my thumb right now, both of them are oily, but my thumb just slides along here. Not that that's a bad thing. It feels amazing as a normal handle, but the difference between the two, the ebony Shirogami white steel handles, they definitely were not lacquered. In the video, I was kind of back and forth with that just because I was thinking of this handle versus this. Anyway, you get the gist. Here's the walnut cutting board. This will hold a focus this time or not. There we go. I don't know, this camera just does, you know what? I'm just gonna show you here. This looks great. You can see the center spot where I normally cut compared to yesterday. It was like really blonde looking and dominant. It kind of blends in, at least from my angle. Yeah, you can, gosh, from this angle, you can hardly even see it. And then the Hinoki. So I had a conversation with Michael. Again, he's the owner of Cutlery and More, third generation, I believe he is. And he's my age, really cool guy. He's like a mentor. He knows more about everything knife related than you can imagine. He just doesn't like to be on camera. So anyway, he's taught me a lot and been great. Anyway, so he said that he's heard that some people say not to put oil on a Hinoki board because of the natural essential oils and things like that that are in here that's supposed to protect it. My father-in-law does a ton of woodworking. I've built quite a few things with wood. I've never heard of never treating wood that is not lacquered with like poly or something like that. So I went ahead with this. Then I did a couple searches. Shun actually sells a Hinoki oil. So should you oil Hinoki? I would say, again, it's going to depend on where you're at, but it's wood. It's going to warp. It gets thirsty. I actually had a little bit of a crack on this one start to develop because of how dry I let this get. So yeah, I would say you should oil any wood that doesn't have poly or some type of real thick lacquer on it that's going to prevent any absorption anyway. Yeah, this looks a lot healthier than it did yesterday. So it's up to you if you want to oil a Hinoki board. My opinion is if it's wood and it's not sealed, it needs to be treated. So there you have it, folks. Oh, real quick, here's the butcher block top. Doesn't look too much different. It's probably, from your perspective, might have a little bit richer of a color. For me, it feels smoother. And again, I've done this multiple times to keep this from warping or, you know, since this is different pieces of wood put together, I don't want them splitting at all. So I want to keep this happy and hydrated, just like we should all be. Ugh, that was a bad ending, but I'm going to keep it. Anyway, I'm Chef Brandon with Cutlery and More. Thanks for hanging out. See you later.